All right, we're going to call ourselves to order. The January MTA Board Meeting is called to order. General Counsel Paige Graves, please provide a quorum.
Yes,
Record.
thank you, Chair Lieber. We have a quorum.
Okay. Before we hear from public speakers, we will have the usual safety announcement.
Your safety is of the foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen and adhere to the following instructions. If you witness an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and call 911 immediately. Please follow any audible instructions provided through the public address system or visually on screens in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell B down the hallway past the elevators. If you have a mobility disability or cannot self-evacuate, please proceed to stairwell D or E for assistance by MTA staff or emergency personnel. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. If you need assistance during an evacuation, please tell an MTA staff member or emergency personnel. Thank you and have a safe day.
Okay, Lucille, may we hear from public speakers?
Good afternoon. We have 27 members of the public registered to speak today. We ask that all public members adhere to the MTA rules of conduct and decorum. As a reminder to the public, speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker today is Alan Rosen, followed by Charlton D'Souza.
My name is Alan Rosen. I am a former MTA New York City Transit Director of Bus Planning. For a time, I was in charge at the first attempt of a Brooklyn bus redesign in 1981. That attempt resulted in a waste of $650,000. This redesign seems nothing more than a rationale for you to reduce service. If you are not reducing service, why won't you tell us the existing and proposed revenue bus miles and hours? Why are you reducing bus service, especially in downtown Brooklyn, when you state in your existing conditions report that the entire borough is growing in population and jobs, and that's especially true for downtown Brooklyn? You claim you want feedback, but all feedback is immediately marked with a closed status the minute it is received. Shouldn't they be marked open until they're at least read and investigated? You refuse to hold in-person meetings regarding the bus network redesigns. Stopping riders at subway stations does not qualify as in-person meetings. Virtual meetings aren't even publicized on the buses, so they are very lightly attended, and only 15 minutes is allowed for the public to speak. We are only told that you will consider our comments. That is unacceptable community participation. Why are you trying to stifle discussion by splitting groups into workshops of about 6 people each so passengers can't hear everyone's comments? You need to make in-person presentations to community boards where passengers can ask questions and receive answers. I submitted at least 25 questions and none have been responded to. I've also been requesting a meeting or a phone call since 2019 to discuss the redesign plan I submitted. No one ever contacted me. A friend of mine with over 20 years' experience in the New York City Department of Transportation sent a polite 56-page critique of the Queen study to Messrs. Davey and Annacaro last May, and they never even received an acknowledgement of receipt. You are ignoring a petition signed by 2,700 passengers who oppose the elimination of over 2,300 bus stops based on faulty reasoning. Is that how you are listening? Join the Brooklyn and Queens redesigned Facebook pages, sign the petition against bus stop removal on change.org, and read my article on bklyner.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charlton D'Souza, followed by Rachel Faust.
Good morning. Happy New Year. I agree with everything Alan said, and we support him 110%. What you guys are doing in Brooklyn, there's been no posters on the express buses, nothing on the local buses. People don't know about this Brooklyn bus redesign. Passengers United was the first organization to hold a virtual public hearing, and we had a lot of people come out. So guys, what I want to talk to you today is on Saturday, there was a shooting on an N train, right? And a person was shot. 2 people actually were shot. I was at a crime scene about 1 week ago at 96th Street where a man was murdered. So last year, 11 people died. This year, 1 person died, 2 people shot. So when you say the subways are safe, go tell that to the victims of crimes and their families, because many of them will not be coming back to the dinner table. So what I want to talk today about is the Jamaica bus terminal. I beg this board, I implore all of you, please do not vote for the Jamaica bus terminal relocation. I only ask you guys for a favor once in a while, and this is that favor. Because if you guys, I was at the place yesterday for 4 hours. I spoke to police officers. I spoke to residents who live there, and they're all telling me this is a bad plan. But you know what? Take a look at my YouTube video, or better yet, go out there, look and see how narrow the streets are. There's no way a bus could go through any of those streets over there. I spent like 3.5 hours there yesterday. And I beg all of you, please don't do this. And also, the bus drivers don't know about this. Union officials are telling me they didn't know about this. So we're going to keep, talking to the elected officials, and we're going to keep pushing this. But, Mr. President, I beg you, one favor this year. I guess this is my favor. Do not vote for this. And you board members have the power. You can stop this today. Because if this goes through, it's going to be a traffic nightmare for Queens. And you got the Queens bus redesign. So wait till that comes out, and then...
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rachel Faust, followed by Maria Giffen Castro.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Faust, and I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for Reinvent Albany. We advocate for more transparent and accountable New York government, including for authorities like the MTA. Reinvent Albany strongly supports congestion pricing because it is the law and has been shown globally to reduce motor vehicle congestion, air pollution, and travel time for public transit. Congestion pricing is not a discretionary act of the MTA. Congestion pricing was enacted into law by our state elected representatives in 2019 with the support of the City Council, business community, transit experts, and environmental advocates. The current governor supports congestion pricing and promised to implement it in her 2023 State of the State address. The new New York panel appointed by the governor and Mayor Adams also firmly supports congestion pricing to ensure people and goods can get to their destinations faster, more reliably, and more sustainably. At the same time, the mayor has made ambivalent statements about the program. The governor must show leadership by championing congestion pricing and working with the mayor and governor of New Jersey to make sure congestion pricing crosses the finish line. Federal sign-off is expected in early 2023, and the hard work of determining toll amounts will begin. The MTA needs the governor's leadership because it's a difficult task making the case for both congestion pricing and new state funding for its operating budget. We agree the MTA fiscal cliff is real and I have asked the state to make good on its funding commitments by restoring at least $375 million in annual payments to the MTA through its 18B program and adjusting the PMT make-whole payments for inflation. This is all part of a bigger funding solution that's needed for the MTA. At the same time, the state should not raid congestion pricing funds for the operating budget. Congestion pricing is the single largest source for the capital program, and to date, only $9 billion of the $55 billion plan has been received by the MTA, largely from federal funds. The MTA simply cannot make up for this on its own by borrowing from its own resources, with debt at 20% of its operating revenues. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maria Giffen Castro.
Thank you. I just had a question I'd like the MTA to consider. I've heard over the course of several board meetings that ridership has decreased. And what I would like to know is, how is it helping you financially to have a portion of your ridership avoiding the subway because they can't ride it safely because there is no mask mandate? Please consider this, and please consider not only how putting a mask mandate on public transportation would help riders, but how it would also help you financially. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Cooperberg, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Hi, David Kupferberg, Passengers United Vice President of Bus Advocacy. New York City Passengers United unanimously opposes the proposal to relocate the 165th Street bus terminal in Jamaica. In this month's board book, just released, the proposal to replace Jamaica Terminal on 165th Street with a new one right across from the NYPD's 103rd Precinct. This proposal is set to be voted in the board meeting today. Community members in Southeast Queens are outraged by this proposal. Therefore, we implore the MTA board to reject this project, which would ultimately be a waste of money and would not benefit transit riders and the communities of Southeast Queens. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Daglian, followed by Jason Anthony.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lisa Daglian, Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. Happy New Year. 2023 is off to a good start. The opening of Grand Central Madison, aka Eastside Access. Metro North turned 40. Happy birthday. On subways, higher ridership and lower crime, despite occasional high-profile incidents that continue to distress. A real interest in finding funding from our elected leaders to head off the fiscal cliff and promise on the congestion pricing front. All this, and it's only January. If the rest of the year measures up to the excitement of the first rides into Grand Central on the LIRR, we'll be in great shape. Everyone should check out Grand Central Madison. It's truly a marvel. You may get all your steps in getting from one end to the other, but will hardly notice as you pass the art, features, and placeholders of things to come. We're glad to see that LIRR riders are already making use of their new home, and in a handful of years, Metro North riders will be able to do the same as their trains roll into Penn Station. Come on, Amtrak. That's why it's so critical that congestion pricing makes it over the goal line in the coming months. But right now, there's much work to do. We'll be listening with great interest when Governor Hochul delivers her executive budget address to learn more about what riders can expect as a starting point in negotiations for funding our transit system. It's critical that this essential service is treated as such, with dedicated revenue sources that will stave off exorbitant fare hikes, ensures we see more, not less service, and keeps valuable workers in place. We remain committed to working with you and our elected leaders to see that dedicated funding makes it through the budget process. But with all happy tidings come the sad, and we're truly sad to see you leave, Craig. Craig Cipriano, we've seen decades of change at the MTA and helped bring about countless improvements to the transit system and the bus network. Riders owe you a debt of gratitude. Your iconic PSA advising those of us who are not a bus to stay out of the bus lanes will forever be a favorite. As will you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani.
Good afternoon, MTA Board. Jason Anthony here, once again, in this huge marathon. First off, as the Executive Director of the PCAC, Lisa Daglian, said, we wanted to wish you, Craig, a happy retirement. Remember that your legacy will still be with us. And you taught us a lot of things. Among them, be proactive and be passionate about the things that you do. And you dedicated all these years studying buses and then taking the most hardest task during COVID-19. Thank you, Craig, for dedicating all these years to us. But regarding Grand Central Madison, I want to thank Jamie. I want to thank Jano for taking us to the finish line. Like I told to Governor Hochul, Jano has been doing a good job being on top of the MTA, and he has kept his promise since his days at Capital Construction. But I wish that Jano, consider bringing back Andy Byford as the replacement of Greg, because Andy was here during the holiday season. That I had an interaction with him in the Treasure Museum Annex. Think about it. He is loved by everybody in the transit community here in New York City, and he should come back to be at the MTA. But also, we need to address crime. Not only people getting shot and killed, but people doing things that they're not supposed to do. So let's address this and among other things in this year, 2023. So I'll see you guys next month.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani, followed by Mary Hooster. Member, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I wasn't allowed to unmute myself. Thank you all for having me, and it is a pleasure to be here at this board meeting virtually. I'm speaking to you from Albany. Greg, wishing you a very fulfilling retirement. Thank you for all of the work that you have done. I am here at this board meeting to say a number of things. First and foremost, to speak about the proposed fare hikes and the service reductions, specifically the ones that are being proposed for the E, the F, and the 7 lines, although I would say that all of the lines that are being proposed would have seriously adverse effects on the lives of my constituents and their abilities to actually live out their day-to-day here in New York City as they should be able to. And the fare hike to $3 in the forthcoming years as something that will price even more New Yorkers out of their most basic right, which is public transit. I do not come here to chastise the MTA board for these proposals, however, more to note my opposition to them. And the reason that I'm not here to speak about the responsibility of it as it being the board's is because I understand that so much of this is a proposal to do more with less, and understanding that really the responsibility in resolving the MTA's fiscal crisis and ensuring that there is no fare hike and ensuring that there are no service cuts is actually the place where I am right now, which is in Albany. And so we have a package of 8 bills that together is known as the Fix the MTA package. And at the core of it is a spending bill, the Formula 3 Act. And in that act, if we pass it within and incorporate it within our April 1st budget, it would freeze the fare at $275, keep the service that we have right now, and actually increase it to ensure that we have 6 minutes or better on trains and a 20% increase in bus service across the system, and actually phase in free buses over the next 4 years. So here to register my opposition to that which is being proposed, and also to say I know where the responsibility lies, and that's where we're hoping to resolve in this forthcoming budget. So thank you all for your work, and if you're interested in this package or in fighting to ensure that these cuts do not come to pass, please go to fixthemta.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Hoyster, followed by Yuki Endo.
Hi, my name is Mary Herster. I live on the Upper East Side, and slightly different theme. I'm calling because I have some concerns about the maintenance of the RFK Bridge. I use the pedestrian lane occasionally, and the fence is really, really low, which feels unsafe in bad weather, especially bad weather. I understand the MTA is responsible for the Triborough, so I'm just wondering what can be done to make the pedestrian side safer. Thanks in advance.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Yuki Endo, followed by Joseph Morales.
Good morning, folks. Oh, is this on? I'm used to being on that side. Morning, folks. I'm going to read this on behalf of Yuki this morning. My name is Yuki Endo. Thank you for opening Grand Central Madison. I enjoyed the first train. I do not support the closure of the Jamaica bus terminal because both passengers on MTA and NICE buses will be confused when the terminal is relocated. This will be a problem for emergency responders. If this terminal relocation is approved, bus drivers will lose their restroom and ability to get food or drink. Will the restroom for bus drivers be like a portable toilet at the Jamaica Center? I do not support the elimination of the B2 bus because many people from Kings Plaza take the B2 bus because it's quicker to the Brighton Beach Line station. I do not support the B103 bus being cut between Brooklyn Heights and Brooklyn College because the bus is faster than the B41 bus. If the B103 bus is cut, the B41 and B40 will be overcrowded. I do not support the weekend service cuts on the X27 and X28, including the Seagate segment of the X28, the BM8K, and the X38, the BM38. Please keep the B46 and B82 local, as it is well as B44 SBS and B15 at the JFK Airport. Thank you. Additionally, the bus redesign will affect Accessoride Paratransit as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joseph Morales, followed by Jean Ryan.
All right, everybody. So basically, I would like to discuss. I saw in the board book about obviously the Hell's Gate line, and Grand Central Madison reopening. These are both gonna. Well, Hell's Gate will be, but this is all really great as far as us having real regional rail infrastructure in the New York region, so that people could traverse not only to Manhattan but other areas on the railroads. But the topic I want to discuss today is possibly lowering the fares on intercity trips to $2.75, simply because there's a lot of communities, particularly in the Bronx, but also some in Queens, that they live on the commuter rail station, but they're priced out of it. And, especially with ridership still not, as we saw earlier in the committee meetings, back at pre-pandemic levels on the railroads, say the MTA was getting $2.75 from more people riding the railroads, that's more revenue than people seeing a peak fare and not being able to afford it, and it gives these people a much faster way to get into Manhattan. And with the combo ticket, I looked, the price is going to be like $8. There's a lot of people in the city that won't be able to afford that. So say someone going from Morris Heights in the Bronx to a job in Bayside, they're pretty much priced out of that. And, it's interesting, Morris Heights, the River Park Towers, that was constructed in part as a transit-oriented development. And the fact that you have a transit-oriented development where a large chunk, if not most of the population, can't even utilize the transit, that's just an absurd ideology to me. I know the MTA needs its revenue, and I feel like the best way to do that is to reduce, very similar to the Freedom Ticket proposal, reduce intercity fares to $2.75, reduce the combo ticket price to $5 within New York City, and make sure that, that New York City residents are not priced out of the commuter rail system. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jean Ryan, followed by Sally Wolf.
Where are our people? There are two people at high levels in the MTA, and they're not here today. They weren't here this morning. We missed them. I'm Jean Ryan, president of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York, DIA for short. On the MTA website, this meeting is classified under transparency, but quite a few people are concerned, baffled, and outraged that neither the MTA nor AAR has mentioned or told us about or shared the October 17th, 2022 letter from the Department of Justice telling the MTA and Accessoride to clean up its act with the bad service Accessoride riders are getting. The DOJ said, and I quote, "If we cannot secure a voluntary compliance agreement to resolve the violations, the Attorney General may bring an enforcement action in district court," unquote. Is there now a secret voluntary compliance agreement with DOJ? If there is, what is in it? Why is it secret? Why haven't we been told about it? What changes is Access-Ride making or planning? I can get up here and say things, but are you going to just say thank you next and ignore us and go on month after month and ignore that people are being left at the curb or picked up late or picked up too early or taken on long circuitous rides? Now you have to answer to someone else besides the activists. The same problems exist since Access-Ride started. One question, why is it okay for Access-Ride and the MTA to outsource all services for people with disabilities? You don't do it on the buses and the subways. So why don't you hire people through NYCT for us too? We would have better service. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sally Wolf, followed by Alita Dupree.
And I'm Sally Wolf. I live in Flatiron. I am back again in this new year to share my now old idea for masked cars or sections of cars on the LIRR, Metro North, and the subway. Last month, I remained full of hope with so many virus rates skyrocketing that you would have piloted this by now. But since you didn't, I actually did. So while my methodology may not have been perfectly scientific, it was just me on my trains doing a little experiment. I have excellent news. What I would do is I would board in Westport or Great Neck or at Penn Station or Grand Central. And if I was fortunate enough to get one of those small little sections on either side, either end of the train, I worked really hard to protect it. Every time the doors would open, if someone began walking my way unmasked, I would speak up and say, hi, if you sit there, would you mind please masking? I'm immunocompromised, or I'm on chemo, or I have cancer. And here's the great news. Almost always, someone either then sat down and masked, or more often, admittedly, they turned away and kindly just walked and found another seat. These were not peak trains. Every so often, yes, someone glared at me and sat down unmasked unnecessarily, but it was the exception. People want to do the right thing. They will do the right thing. That was without any signage on my side, without any policy on my side, without the MTA's help on my side. Just little me. I'm 5'1", I am tiny. Little me doing my small part to protect my physical well-being, my emotional well-being, my mental well-being. And unfortunately, I then have to spend the whole ride alert. I can't relax, but at least I can do it. But I still minimize my train time. I walked 3 miles each way to Memorial Sloan earlier this month in the rain. Last week, I walked home 4 miles from Sinai. But advocacy isn't just about me. Not every patient can do that. We all have the right to feel safe on trains. We pay our fares. Please help us ride without stress.
Please conclude your remarks.
Just on a very positive note, I actually
Thank you so much for your comment. Our next speaker is Alita Dupree, followed by Jennifer Van Dyke.
And Chair General Lieber, Alita Dupree for the record, my pronouns are she and her. It's good to be back with you again, because I love a good public meeting. Well, we did it. We have our Grand Central Madison. I hope to get back to New York in February. I'm going to use it. And I'm going to use Metro North and Penn Station, because I want to use all these systems, practice the idea of getting right down the line and explore all that this great city has to offer. The city I was born in and of several generations of forebears. So how do we build the best subway that we can and reach the most people that we can? I don't think the time is right for a fare increase. I think we have to try to find everything that we can do to avoid a fare increase. I am very concerned when I read about some issues with the purchase of electricity that is being investigated. And I think we should get some new electric meters that can evaluate our use in real time. I have a smart meter on my home. I don't have the technology to evaluate electricity in real time, but I can check it the day after. So how can we get there on our system so we don't I don't know if we've truly overpaid for electricity. We'll have to see what that comes out. I'm not knocking Con Ed. I have a few shares of Con Ed, and family members have Con Ed. Con Ed has been very good to us through the years, but we got to work on that. find out that we should only pay what is due. And ADA, of course, is very important, and I'm looking forward to using Omni. And I'm looking forward to these new schedules for Grand Central Madison. And I hope we can work with the Port Authority about somehow getting Omni or some open payment integrated with them. Fair integration as well. Okay, my time is up. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Van Dyke, followed by Christopher Greif.
Good afternoon. I'm with the Elevator Action Group at Rise and Resist. And guess what? The subway system is barely 25% accessible. That means that 75% of the system is still inaccessible, and that's on a good day. So you have a dashboard that is available to everyone that states exactly how many elevator outages there are on any given day. Shockingly, last year, there were, are you ready? 98,969 outages. That breaks down to 52,115 scheduled outages, 46,854 non-scheduled, and a resounding 9,401 entrapments. Look, if these numbers make you dizzy, try understanding this. Your dashboard states that all those outages made for 95.4% availability in 2022. Now, President Davey recently said in an interview, the 24-hour availability rate has been close to 99% and trending upward. Accessibility activists see no upward trend. 95% accessibility is not 99%. And let's not forget that the entire system is only 25% accessible, so 95% of 25% is nothing to crow about. If you're a person who relies on elevators to get to work, and your trip requires 4 elevators, the number game, it gets insane. Look, if any one elevator is out of service, the trip cannot be completed. Now, this vaporizes your percentage calculations. Just one broken elevator makes the other 3 on this trip useless. What does that do to 95% accessibility? What does that do to your upward trend? And let's talk about the elevators that are managed by third parties. 18 out of the 20 worst performing elevators in 2022 were privately maintained. Hey, MTA, this is not acceptable. You outsource the work. You have to take responsibility for the results. Accessibility is a civil right. We need a system that is 100% accessible. Plain and simple. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christopher Greif, followed by Andy Pollock.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm here because Craig, 33 years, you're still too young to retire. And I'm going to say it because you and I had some great moments. 88, when we did the 88 celebration with the R211, the new bus, the new train, and buses, we always had great times. Even when we had some bus issues, we got solved the problems. Today I'm here because, Craig, I will miss you because you and I always smile. Excuse me, I can't smile because I have Bell palsy, but I can still do a half a smile, which my mother will be not far behind me, smiling the rest. But we will miss you very much because, and I know Lisa and Jason already said it, so I will definitely really miss you and will continue advocating. And I hope wherever you're going, don't forget Brooklyn. Because I don't, because you know Brooklyn is where you and I always work together and to continue advocating. And I want to thank our MTA police very much and NYPD. They're doing their job of getting some of these people out of the trains and homeless, but we have to work together in the communities and let them know to please go to your community council meetings, your CCO meetings, because how can we get our trains to run if we don't work with the NYPD, the community, and our elected officials? It can happen. Anywhere we go, it can happen, but we have to work together to keep the community safe and strong. And I do want to thank the 34th Street, the new station. It looks so beautiful, nice and big, and ADA accessible. Thank you so much, and everyone, and please enjoy the rest of the board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andy Pollock, followed by Deborah Greif.
Good afternoon, members of the board, and good afternoon to Chairman Lieber. Before I talk about the Jamaica project, I just want to wish Craig congratulations on his retirement. And now I'm going to move on to the Jamaica bus project. So it was recently brought to my attention, our organization, Passengers United attention to be specific, that today the board is going to vote on a brand new bus terminal in downtown Jamaica. There are a couple of flaws with this that I'm going to read from this list here. Number one, this is going to be right by the 103rd precinct, which means somebody escapes, they're going to have an easy way to get onto any bus, either New York City Transit or NICE in that particular. Traffic. It's going to deter the police response time along with FDNY and the ambulances in the area because you have Jamaica Hospital close by. Also, there's no accurate security plan. So there's a chance that we could have a cop assaulted. Parking by the DMV. Parking by the Social Security building. It's going to be hard to find parking in the area. Also, 169th Street from Hillside Avenue, and that left turn is a blind curve for buses. The streets in Jamaica are too narrow, and I've dealt with narrow streets in Bayside before, so believe me. And also, it was brought to our organization's attention that Nassau County, NICE Bus, wasn't even notified about this. County Executive Bruce Blakeman wasn't notified about this. The legislators in Mineola were not notified about this, so please do not vote to approve this project in Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Deborah Grafe, followed by Murray Bowden.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, Craig, I'm here also because I want to say I'm going to miss you. I want to thank you for every time I was attacked or bullied by a bus driver because I dared to have a walker, or when we had the COVID, they insisted I go to the back of the bus, and you told me I didn't have to, and persons like myself, because we had true disabilities, and it was safer for us to board in the front. I was, of course, wearing masks. I never went on the bus when the mask mandates were put in, but I appreciate every time you heard me. You also help the population I advocate for as I chair for families who have children with developmental disabilities in Brooklyn. And we all appreciate you, and I have messages from the other chairs. They thank you. Because one thing we've been trying to do is make sure those children can travel independently so they can live more in the community. So we appreciate that when we brought issues up, you would hear us. And I thank you. As you know, my Christopher has Bell's palsy, so I'm doing the smile for him. It's a little hard. He is getting better, but it'll take a little time. But I want you to know how much we thank you for all the years you did. We appreciate it. We're going to miss you, and please enjoy your retirement. And I can't say anything else, so thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Murray Bowden, followed by Kara Leibowitz.
Safety requires consistency of information. The same information anywhere. Anywhere you go in New York City, don't block the box, there's a white box. But in Roaring Brook Crossing in Westchester, Metro North, decided we're going to do it differently. We're just going to put a sign up there that says don't park on the tracks. So everybody who can't read the sign because they're texting or whatever isn't used to that railroad crossing. So why isn't there a black and white box, don't block the box? Because Kathy isn't willing to change. On East River Drive, you go across the Willis Avenue Bridge, there's a gate and a traffic light. Most people know traffic lights, you stop. Roaring Brook Crossing's got flashing red lights. Why? Because 50 years ago, we used flashing red lights. Today, traffic light belongs there. But they won't do it because we're Metro North. And Kathy's mad at me because I said, well, if you live in Scarsdale and you got money, you got a quiet zone. But if you live in the Bronx and you don't have money, and I'm on the other side of the Botanical Gardens, I can hear the train as it goes by the station there. So blowing the train whistle is related to how much money you have. I don't think that's fair. The two sets of rules, the ones I have to follow and the ones they don't have to follow. It's this board's responsibility to ensure safety. Safety means consistency. I learned that from the New York State Thruway. Somebody remembers who works here now. Consistency. It's your responsibility to make this place safe. And if she doesn't like me, c'est la guerre.
Our next speaker is Kara Leibowitz, followed by Sasha Blair Goldenson.
My name is Kara Leibowitz, Advocacy Coordinator at the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled. As I'm sure the board is aware, on October 17th, the Department of Justice sent a letter detailing multiple repeated violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act by Access-a-Ride, including untimely drop-offs, extremely early arrivals, and excessive travel times. The MTA has not, to our knowledge, publicly acknowledged this letter in any way or taken steps to address the issues detailed in the letter. Access-a-Ride riders deserve to know, what is the MTA doing to fix the problems that plague Access-a-Ride? As an Access-a-Ride user and an advocate who hears the stories of Access-a-Ride riders on a regular basis, I can tell you that we cannot trust Access-a-Ride to get us to our destinations on time without wasting hours of our lives sitting on an Access-a-Ride vehicle that brings us all over the city before dropping us off. There is a reason Access-a-Ride is commonly referred to as the 5-borough tour. It is not an exaggeration. Meanwhile, without a mask mandate in place, many high-risk and immunocompromised New Yorkers, Access-a-Ride customers, cannot even use the inadequate service without seriously risking their health and their safety. You can't ignore this away or keep it hidden. The problems with Access-a-Ride are so severe that the federal government has taken notice, and your lack of transparency is alarming. We are waiting to hear the steps you are taking to rectify these issues. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sasha Blair Goldenson, followed by Dr. Lucky Tran.
Hello. Good morning. I'm Sasha Blair Goldenson from the Rise and Resist Elevator Action Group. Last time I spoke here was in June, celebrating with Chairman Lieber and Chief Arroyo the settlement agreement to a guaranteed schedule to build safe, stair-free elevator access at every station, every subway station. It took 5 years, countless hours, and millions of taxpayer dollars to reach that agreement, but we did it. So why are we still here? Because the other half of that case, now almost 6 years old, said you don't just have to build elevators, they have to work. And the MTA continues fighting that commitment to working elevators, as Jennifer was saying before. They don't work, and that is insane. Governor Hochul, you control the MTA. Please stop putting millions of our dollars behind the losing argument that it's okay to deny people with disabilities like me and so many others the same right of access to the subway like everyone else. It's wrong, it's a loser in court, and it ignores the plain as a fact that it's not only our right, it's in the city's strategic interest to have safe, stair-free access on elevators for everyone who needs it. It's 2023. Strollers, luggage, deliveries, older adults, they all need it. We all need it. And the MTA needs riders and revenue, as we've heard. We are here. Let us ride. We are riders. Governor Hochul, you control the MTA. Please stop fighting elevators and start fixing them. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Lucky Tran, followed by Guilherme Gatti.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lucky Tran, and I'm a scientist and public health communicator who works at Columbia's Medical Center. I'm urging you once again to reinstate the mask mandate for public transit. For several weeks, COVID community levels in all of New York City's boroughs have been at high. The CDC recommends universal indoor masking when COVID community levels are high. New York has issued an advisory for universal masking. Heck, New York even created its very own COVID variant in this time. Why is the MTA continuing to ignore official public health guidance? According to models at current NYC COVID levels, there is around an 80% chance someone in a half-full subway car currently has COVID-19. This risk would be greatly reduced by a mask mandate. Studies show that universal masking can be up to 10 times more effective than one-way masking, and when there was a mask mandate, 90% of MTA riders wore masks. Without a mask mandate, you are continuing to prevent higher-risk New Yorkers from participating in society. If they can't ride public transport, that means they can't get to medical appointments or access other essential services without seriously risking their health. How can you continue to sit there and just be okay with that? Look, you may be thinking that you can keep sitting it out and doing nothing, and this whole entire thing will just magically go away. You'd be wrong. COVID is going to be around at higher levels for a long, long time. Every day you do nothing is another day you are excluding New Yorkers from riding public transit. Every day you do nothing is another day that New York is not whole. Higher risk New Yorkers have the right to take part in society too. Please do the right thing and reinstate the mask mandate for public transit. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Guillermo Gatti, followed by Terry Zucker.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to congratulate Greg on a really great career and good luck on your retirement. And I also want to thank John Lieber, the chairperson, for an amazing job. I am speaking today on behalf of Civics United for Railroad Environmental Solutions, otherwise known as CURES. I'm sure everyone on this board would agree that we all deserve clean air to breathe. In fact, New York State's 2021 constitutional amendment states that everyone is entitled to clean air and clean water. So my question is, why is the Long Island Railroad dragging their feet on the procurement to secure clean locomotives for the use of the Long Island Railroad and its freight connoisseurs, the New York and Atlantic Railway? You have the power to eliminate community air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions that is equivalent to the pollution from 1 million cars. More than $20 million has already been allowed and voted in and is available today for you to do the procurement, but something is backing it up and holding it from being spent. I would like to petition you and implore you to spend the money that you have in the controller's contract, number D as in David, as in Richard, 36644, on a straightforward Tier 4 switch, duty cycle repower that cost efficiently recycles and reuses locomotives that you already own. By doing this, you will measurably reduce greenhouse gases and provide cleaner community air for children and family in New York City and Long Island. And thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Terry Zucker, followed by Jesse Figueroa.
Oh, okay. Hello. Yes. Hi. I'm Terry Zucker. I'm not through any part of organization or anything. I'm just a New Yorker who has had to deal with disabilities. I mean, I've had OCD for many years before I even knew what OCD was, and I've been on medication for it since before the millennium. And that OCD got kicked into high gear once the pandemic came because it kind of validated all the fears that I've had. You know, because to me, I was always afraid of the subways, afraid of germs and stuff, but I was younger and healthier, and I took the train to work because I didn't have a choice. Now, I have been diagnosed since 2019. I've had to deal with cancer, 3 different kinds of cancers, actually, radiation, immunotherapy, Mohs surgery. I have chronic kidney disease. Honestly, I have so many illnesses that I'm not even sure what is doing what in terms of my physical limitations. I mean, I get body aches, I get tired, I get irritable, and Accessoride keeps on making me reapply. I don't know, maybe it thinks my illnesses are going to go away. But I mean, I got it in 2020 because I needed cancer treatment, and I got it for a year. And then I got it for another year, and I just had to reapply, and I got it for only 6 months. My doctors wrote notes that I'm immunocompromised. They wrote about the many conditions I have, and that it is not a good idea for me to be unsafe on public transportation. I am not really sure how, I don't know. I've spoken to other people who have had Accessoride and trouble with Accessoride. I don't know what their rhyme or reason is for who they approve and for how long. But I know my disabilities are not going away, and I don't appreciate being in a situation where if I lose Accessoride after 6 months, I mean, I have no choice but to travel on trains and buses and walk up and down long staircases. And
Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jesse Figueroa, followed by Myra Batchelder.
Happy retirement, buddy. May you enjoy it. I mentioned the topics this morning about 12/9 on the rampage. Homelessness is still on the rampage. I caught a homeless guy without shoes on the F train yesterday, Queens Boulevard Express. I talked to a conductor at Jackson Heights. He had to wait all the way to one Sunday night in Jamaica to do what he had to do. That upsets me. Number two, the drama that happened at Grand Central Madison, where a minor, a 17-year-old, was assaulted by an adult. That's what I heard. So number two, that's number two. Number three, I have a 14-year-old friend of mine who has been bullied by a bus driver trying to help an elderly customer, doesn't know where to go. That upsets me too. And I'm also a disabled veteran. I applied for Accessoride this past Friday, and I agree with Ms. Terry and Ms. Jean. I'm a disabled veteran. I've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, and I'm with my attorney on that one. And it's not right. We are all treated equal. It's in our Constitution. We are all created equal. We have equal rights. And about the mask mandates, for God's sakes, please show respect to those who are immunocompromised, like Miss Sally. And my father got cancer. So if you're offered a seat with someone who's got a mask, please wear a mask. And last but not least, we need increased service on the M12 and M14 ASBS. And we need to reinstate the bus lanes between 57th Street and 23rd Street on 11th Avenues and 12th Avenues. And also, please, we have to put an end to crime. It's driving us insane. Thank you for your time, and God bless.
Our next speaker is Myra Batchelder, followed by Lyric Thompson.
Hi, thank you. My name is Myra Batchelder, and I work on public health. I'm here today to urge the board to reinstate the mask mandate on the MTA. All of New York City still has high community transmission of COVID-19, according to the CDC, and 3 out of 5 boroughs still have high community levels, meaning high transmission and high hospitalizations. CDC guidance says everyone should be wearing a mask on public transit in New York City. In addition, we know COVID rates are vastly undercounted because home tests aren't counted in New York City and many other places. Experts at Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation estimate COVID cases in the US are actually to around 20 to 25 times higher than are being reported. We are still in the midst of high COVID rates, and we are not taking the steps needed to lower transmission. This is putting people's lives in danger. We need to reinstate the mask mandate on public transit. New Yorkers support mask mandates on public transit. A poll done last year showed 7 in 10 New York City voters supported mask mandates on public transit. Around 55% of households in New York City don't own a car. In Manhattan, it's around 78%. We rely on public transportation to get to doctor's offices, work, school, grocery stores, and everywhere. Many of us that are at higher risk are having to postpone going to needed medical care because we cannot safely get there, and our doctors are urging us to postpone until cases go down. Ending the mask mandate on public transit has made our lives more unsafe, including for those of us at higher risk for severe COVID. In addition, it's important to point out that everyone is at risk from COVID. Long COVID and serious health issues can happen to anyone. You can't ignore this. You can't keep putting our lives in danger. We urge you to reinstate the mask mandate on the MTA. Please do the right thing and listen to those of us that are at higher risk, and you are putting our lives in danger. Please reinstate the mask mandate on the MTA. We're going to keep coming back and asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lyric Thompson, followed by Thomas Johnson.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lyric Thompson. I'm not with any organization. I'm just a New Yorker. I too am asking that you reinstate the mask mandate. It is literally the least we can do to keep our fellow citizens safe and to prevent the spread of a deadly disease. Aside from that, I'd like to touch on accessoride for a moment. I worked at Global Contact Services for the span of 3 months. Daily, I would take calls from citizens who were left at their appointments, where their rides never showed up to take them to their chemo treatments or dialysis, where you offer a citizen, if they have to be at their appointment at, say, 9:30, well, we'll pick you up at 6 a.m. How's that work for you? You could just sit outside that establishment and wait. My breaking point was when I took a call from a woman that was left at dialysis. She waited for 3.5 hours for her accessoride ride to show up, and then she proceeded to take her electronic wheelchair home. It started raining halfway through, and then she got stuck. This broke me, to be honest. So I called the MTA, and I spoke to a guy, I believe his name was Daniel or Donald, and I expressed concern that our citizens were not being picked up. They were missing needed medical appointments, and this was really an issue. He yelled at me and told me we didn't have enough people, and how dare I make that phone call. Needless to say, Accessoride fired me within a week, and I heard from HR within 15 minutes of that phone call. Now, I don't mean to be ugly, but I can't help but think that we could do better by our elderly. Don't you think? Please look into that company, because I don't think my tax dollars should go to subsidizing a company that engages in elder abuse or abuse towards our disabled.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Thomas Johnson, followed by Elizabeth Valdez.
Hello, thank you. I'm not going to repeat what everyone said about asking for a mask mandate because it's the least possible anyone can do. I just really want to beg anyone with any power or responsibility to recognize that their decisions they make have the ability to save the life of someone else. When you listen to all of us speak and you just say, I don't really have to hear that, you could be costing someone their life. So when people are begging for mask mandates, they're begging for us to protect the most vulnerable of our society. You can do something about that. You can listen. You, in your position of responsibility, can decide that I can speak up. I can be the one to do the right thing. And even if you don't achieve your goal, you can still move the goal forward. You might feel alone, you might feel defeated, but there is someone listening who will do the right thing. And if you speak up, there is someone who will hear you. And if you choose to do the right thing and you support mask mandates, you support mask recommendations, you support anything that protects the most vulnerable in our society, you are helping the future of all people. You have that power. If you're in a position of responsibility and you're hearing this and you're wondering, what can I do to help people? Listen to what people are saying. Protect the most vulnerable in our society. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Elizabeth Valdez, followed by Miriam Fisher.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Elizabeth Valdez from the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, BCID. As mentioned earlier, on October 17, Damian Williams, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, wrote New York City Transit's General Counsel about the foundings of a Department of Justice investigation of accessoride, undertaken because of complaints by numerous riders. If you haven't seen the letter, I urge you to read it for yourself. The letter details an illegal pattern of what Mr. Williams described as untimely drop-offs and excessive travel times for accessoride users. For example, the DOJ found that accessoride travel times were, and I quote from the letter, excessive for 78% of trips originating in Brooklyn, 91% of trips originating in Manhattan, and 72% of trips originating in Queens. It also found a pattern of both excessively late drop-offs and extremely early drop-offs. Overall, Mr. Williams concluded that by offering poor service, Accessoride imposed illegal capacity constraints and ultimately violated federal law. This is hardly a surprise to me as someone who has been using Accessoride for years. Mr. Williams indicates that you cooperated with this investigation, but he also points out that you must fix this or face a federal lawsuit. Get going. And also I want to say to please reinstate the mask mandate on public transportation. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Miriam Fisher.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I wasn't admitted to the meeting till 12, so I may be repeating some things that were already said. I want to reaffirm that return to the subway of riders is linked to safety, accessibility, and reliability of elevators for people with disabilities, people with parents with strollers, visitors with luggage, delivery, and seniors who are increasing in numbers. Elevators are not working on an average of 25 daily, or 12% of the total of 297, which is quoting President Davey. That's 80% of total elevators, not the 99% that we have been told publicly. I welcome the announcements now on the subway of the location of the elevators at the next platform, but there's no notice of outages. I went to Grand Central on the 7th for a month. The subway was boarded up with tape. They knew it wasn't working, and there was no change until I actually tweeted it, and then I got an answer from MTA, and it was investigated. That was a month. People are stranded who don't have options, don't have choices of other resources to travel. And there are now 500,000 in New York City with ambulatory disabilities, 1 million in various other kinds of disabilities. There are your riders repeating the request for the mask mandate. And last, no one on the MTA board currently with a disability. Opening for governor to appoint someone who uses mass transit, knowledgeable about experiences, struggles. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Lieber, this concludes public comment.
Thank you, Lucille, and thank you to everybody who participated in these in the public comment sessions today. Okay, I'm going to deliver some quick remarks, and then we'll go about our board business. I want to thank everybody for joining this condensed board meeting. This is our group's first gathering of 2023. I know the one-day structure was a throwback to the peak of the COVID era, but we'll be back on the regular two-day schedule next month. Listen, today I really want to take stock of the progress that we've achieved in the last year. You'll remember back in March, Strategic Initiatives Chief John Kaufman laid out the MTA's 2022 strategic priorities, which are focused on getting customers back to transit and building a stronger MTA for our riders, for the public. That wasn't just talk. In the months since, we've seen significant, major progress in delivering on some of these priorities. Let's just go through a few of them quickly. Service. Our number one goal was to deliver better service. Rich Davey, the president of Transit, spoke about this earlier. December was a tremendously strong month. That's the result, in part, of our success in hiring over 1,000 new train operators and conductors earlier in the year. From the second half of 2021 to 2022, our service delivery stat increased from 91 to 94%. That's a lot fewer trains that don't make their runs because we got our workforce back up to the right level. And guess what? As Rich alluded to earlier again, January looks like it's going to be even stronger. Subway on-time performance in January so far is hovering around 85%. That's the highest it's been in 10 years. 10 years. You would have had to go back to April 2013 to find a comparable month. And buses are also moving faster. System-wide, despite the resurgence of traffic, we've maintained speeds 2% above 2019 levels, and we're pushing forward with the key ingredients that we always talk about: bus lanes, automatic bus camera enforcement, and so much more. Commuter railroads are crushing it. Under Kathy Rinaldi's leadership, Metro North's OTP for the year was 97%. Long Island Railroad was sky high as well at 96%. This is the best performance ever by our commuter railroads, except for the very height of COVID when, dare I say, nobody was riding. This is historic. Let's not let that, this pass unnoticed, that the MTA's core services are delivering. And we want to talk, I'll talk a little bit later about Accessoride and the Paratransit portion of our system as well. Safety and respect, something I also put at the top of the list. We've been working on this for a couple of years now, but the Cops, Cameras, and Care initiative unveiled by Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams in October put us in overdrive, and we're already seeing results. We heard some of it from Chief Kemper this morning. Crime for the last three months is down double digits compared to the same period a year ago. When comparing that same span of 3 months to historical data, we're currently at the second lowest overall crime level since 1995. Second lowest for this period that we've just come through since the new initiatives were announced by the governor and the mayor. Major progress. And this month, in January, year to date, crime is down 30% versus last year. A significant turnaround. And customers are noticing the difference. In our December customer survey, when asked how safe they feel, our customers told us that they feel a lot better. Nearly 20% more respondents said they feel safe or very safe, which was up significantly from October. In fact, the portion of customers who said they feel safe or very safe was the highest since we started asking the question. And 39% of customers are saying, which is 10% up from before, that they feel that we have the right number of police in the system. Again, the highest percentage ever. So big progress on the safety front as well. Listen, we want our customers back, and we're doing everything we can to make transit easy and convenient. Not only did we create new flexible fare options and dramatically surged the usage of Omni, as you can see from the graph on the screen, pushing those new Omni-oriented discounts out has really allowed a lot of people to move onto the Omni season. We're also knocking off capital projects left and right that are going to make the system more attractive to riders. Look at what was accomplished on the third track project. We always talk about it, but also at the new Elmont UBS Arena, and the Penn Station Concourse. A quarter of Penn Station now looks like a modern transportation facility. That's a change. And just last week, we unveiled 4 newly modernized elevators that are going to serve that concourse and the incredibly busy adjacent IRT stations, the 1, 2, and 3 lines. And then there's Grand Central Madison. It hasn't even been a week, but riders are just loving the new service to the east side. New York One spent what looks like the entire day on the site after we opened, and they were talking to happy customers who willingly said, and we didn't even pay them, they willingly said that this is going to save them a lot of time and be much more convenient. More time with family, more time for the good things in life. And not to be overlooked, the fact that we delivered this is a significant improvement to the idea of civic space in New York. Creating a major new civic space, we always love squeezing more transportation out of the facilities that we have. But in addition to the travel convenience, the fact that we're adding to the civic space, that we're expanding what I always consider really the temple of mass transit in New York and maybe in the United States, Grand Central, in order to have a whole new community of riders from Queens and Long Island be able to benefit, I think is a shot in the arm for our belief in ourselves that we can change New York, that we can change people's lives, and we can do it with mass transit. This video was taken over the weekend. A lot of folks just looking around, getting to know the space, before we roll out the new schedules that'll expand beyond the shuttle service offered just now. And this is what still remains to happen. We're going to a 40% increase system-wide in Long Island Railroad service. Lots more service, not just to the island, but to also those communities in Queens, which our hope are really going to benefit. We got some room on the trains already. We're now going to create more room by having more service. Let some of that ridership, let some of that space go to New Yorkers who could shorten their commute by taking the railroad instead of having to take a bus to a train or however. That's part of our vision. So stay tuned for the service increases that are yet to come. And it's not only about mega projects. Another key element of the goal of increasing customer appeal is expanding accessibility. We heard a lot about this today. It is a top priority. It is something that the leadership of the MTA is passionate about. You'll remember in June, we announced a historic agreement to continue advancing ADA projects at our current pace all the way until we get to 95% system accessibility. And we're on our way. We awarded contracts for 13 new ADA stations in 2022. Another 16 are expected this year. And there are over 70 stations in progress right now. We're doing everything we can to move it even faster, pushing for funding from the feds. There's a new program for accessibility that we applied for and very aggressively. And this month we are awarded a competitive $254 million grant as part of the Biden infrastructure law for additional ADA upgrades in Brooklyn and the Bronx. Whenever we talk about federal funding, I can't let the moment pass without acknowledging the MTA's guardian angel in Washington, Chuck Schumer. He has helped us to respond effectively to the Biden infrastructure law and to use it to get incremental money for this huge priority of accessibility. Listen, we heard a lot this morning and today from our partners and customers in the paratransit community, and we are working hard to improve paratransit. But I want to emphasize that the DOJ letter that our friends talked about was based on pre-COVID, more than 3-year-old stats. Here we are, let's talk about where we are today, because it indicates that we are having some success. Since the beginning of 2022, on-time performance for primary paratransit service has increased to 96%. The broker service, these are the for-hire vehicles that now represent roughly 70% of paratransit rides. Broker service is up 8 points from a year ago to 92%. And a signifier of our optimism and our passion about improving on-time performance, we're actually in the process of tightening how we measure our own on-time performance from a 30-minute window to a 20-minute window. Right now, we're carrying both stats. You see it in the reports. But over time, we're going to move to a 20-minute window because we do think that we have to deliver something that's even more attractive for our paratransit customers. On top of all this, our rate of no-shows is down to just 0.07% for primary service and 0.44% for brokers. All of these improvements together drove a huge increase in customer satisfaction. Our paratransit customers are telling us that they like what we're doing. 38-point increase in customer satisfaction, moving from 44% in the fall of 2021 to 72% in the fall of 2022. Chris Pangilinan, who leads paratransit for New York City Transit, has been in and out of this boardroom today, but he has accomplished an amazing amount in a short time, and I'm always going to honor his efforts and his quiet, substantive way of really moving the dial on this issue. We're not forgetting about buses either. Buses deserve a special focus because, as I always say, they're the engines of transit equity, serving many transit-deprived areas and historically disadvantaged populations, especially racial minorities and seniors. We need to bring the bus network into the 21st century. The first priority has to be increasing speed so that taking the bus is actually faster than walking. We're using every tool in the toolbox, as I said before. Bus lanes and busways, transit signal prioritization, automated bus lane enforcement, all those cameras on top of the buses, the cameras that the city is using to help us enforce bus lanes. In the last year, we installed 300 of those ABLE cameras in routes across the 5 boroughs, and this year we're going to install another 600. We're going to get us to the point where a huge proportion of the bus lanes, the buses that operate in bus lanes actually have those cameras, and we're going to do it quick. We also have the bus network redesigns. We're 6 months into the Bronx rollout, and it's going great. A couple months ago, you saw a video of customers literally with tears in their eyes expressing appreciation for how the Bronx bus redesign had saved them 10 to 20 minutes on their bus routes. And we're pressing forward with the redesigns in our 2 most populous boroughs, where the proposed Queens final plan is on the way after 2 drafts and a ton of community outreach. And the workshops are underway in Brooklyn to get feedback on the borough's draft plan. We're going to make sure that we have a lot of dialogue with the communities and the users and get the word out. We heard a little about that this morning, but I know we are committed to making that a very, very inclusive process. As Rich Davey, a very wise man, said not too long ago, the one thing we know about the Brooklyn bus redesign is the map is going to be a little different in the end than when we propose, and that's because we are committed to the dialogue with the community. On the zero emissions front, we just committed to ordering enough electric buses to get north of 10% of our fleet as we work towards our 2040 goal to go all zero emissions. And you heard a lot about the Jamaica bus terminal. There's 2 different facilities that are sometimes confused. The Jamaica Bus Depot, the principal bus depot in that neck of the woods, is being outfitted. We're prioritizing it because of the history in that community, environmental justice history in that community, and the dependence of Southeast Queens on buses. We're prioritizing that community for electric bus charging facilities at the front end of that initiative, and just to make that clear. But what we didn't hear as much about from the podium, although I want to acknowledge Lisa Daglian and the PCAC for carrying the torch on it very, very effectively and loudly, is the priority that we must place right now, right now, the number one priority has to be achieving fiscal stability and really dealing with our roughly $2 billion structural deficit coming out of COVID. Back in March, we talked about the need to attack our own inefficiencies, which we're doing, and see the budget that you all approved in December for proof. $400 million in savings and a basis for kickstarting discussions with Albany. We've done our part at the MTA to get this discussion going. I've shouted from every rooftop in the city about the need for a new funding model for transit, less dependent on the fare box, less burden on the riders, in keeping with national standards for major systems. We can't be under prioritizing transit in the most transit dependent region of the United States. But here we are, just a few days away from the governor's historic executive budget that means so much to us. I am optimistic that the budget, the executive budget, will reflect her commitment to the MTA. It's not only the way she's comported herself in relationship to mass transit since the day she took office, but what she said in the State of the State and again about transit being the lifeblood of the region, and also the priorities that she places on achieving a stable fiscal situation for the MTA. I am optimistic. I also want to thank this board for all that you have done to help us get to this point. We're on the verge of the legislative session that will determine our fate. You have all been passionate advocates for this system and for our riders. You've listened to us as we laid out agency priorities, given us meaningful feedback, and backed us up in the public sphere that we have to use to push out the message. We couldn't have gotten to this point where we're delivering on service, on safety, and on major capital investments without all of you. We've already celebrated Craig Cipriano just a little bit along the way. I mean, the reason that Craig has already been celebrated, have we noticed, is that the folks have just appreciated, where is Craig? Craig had that appreciated work. Folks inside the MTA appreciate Craig, and even equally significant, folks outside the MTA who have had to come to Craig with their concerns and their problems and their hopes and dreams for bus service, also know what kind of person he is and what kind of professional he is. So Craig is departing the MTA, having achieved that magic milestone that entitles him to a comfortably pensioned retirement. But what he's leaving behind is a bus system under Frank Anacara's leadership that's really in strong shape, where we have amazing professionals who work the bus system every day. They are the best customer service professionals you can imagine, because they do it all while they're all actually trying to turn a wheel and move that big vehicle through some complicated New York streets. But you've created a system at New York City Transit and the bus system that's really given us hope that we can achieve a better bus system and more transit equity and accomplish everything we want. So thank you, and Godspeed to you, Craig. And now I have to talk about a very shy, understated man named Michael Garner. Now, Michael and I have a lot of things in common, and we always get we're always at danger of wasting a few minutes at the end of meetings talking about basketball and history and neighborhoods and restaurants and so much more. But in the meantime, I was blessed when I got to MTA to find that in one of the principal goals that the MTA had, we were trying to rebuild the capital program, do capital projects differently, bundle some of them, as you heard from Jamie, to be more efficient. But the one thing we had was a super high functioning MWBE operation led by our chief of DDCR, the Division of Diversity and Civil Rights, named Michael Garner, who always reminded us about, as you say, keeping eyes on the prize, which is that we're creating a model for how you can actually deliver projects big and small, mega, and the small business mentoring programs, and everyone in a way that's truly inclusive. And Michael spread the gospel, not just here, but again, overcoming his shyness and so much more throughout state government and city government. And so Michael has an opportunity to go and jumpstart what's happening on the city side with M's and W's and DBEs. And we're thrilled for him. We're thrilled for the city that they're going to have the energy and passion and commitment and record of success that we've all enjoyed now transferred over to their amazing operation as well. So Michael, thank you for your leadership and thank you for showing us the way. Okay, that's my spiel for today. So let's go about the more routine business. I think first we're going to. At this point, I just don't want to move on without acknowledging if there are any board member comments or questions raised by my comments or otherwise. That now would be the time. Mr. Birmingham.
Actually, this is from this morning, Jano. I just wanted to confirm, when we were talking about the Jamaica facility, the bus facility, okay, we don't own that property, right? And the people who own the property have indicated that they want to move on and develop it for something else.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do my best. It was a leased property, the existing Jamaica bus terminal, not the bus depot, which is a different facility. The Jamaica bus terminal is a leased property. In effect, the owner's saying us, I'm doing something else with it, so you're out.
Okay.
We had to find an alternative site. We did it in tandem with the Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, which is the really well-known neighborhood economic development entity in Jamaica. And the site that was chosen was the best site. And one other point I would just clear up is it is being done in tandem with NICE Bus, the Nassau County bus operation, so that they will continue to be able to utilize it as well.
Okay. I don't have a vote, but I'm satisfied with that personally. Thank you.
Mr. Zuckerman, and then I have to jump away because we're going to hear from one of the county executives about Grand Central Madison. Go ahead.
The only I'd add is you were asking for comments on what you said, and you said a lot of very successful, impressive things that have been done in your tenure. The part that I don't envy us, yourself, or our elected officials is solving our fiscal crisis. That is, for all the things you talked about, all the great things we are doing, ultimately that existential crisis is real, is in front of us, and the legislature and the governor we need them, and they are clearly thinking about this problem. They're trying to solve this problem, but ultimately someone has to pay, and we're going to have to figure it out because otherwise everything else we talk about is corollary to that issue.
Okay. Point taken from the business consultant who sits on our board. What else before we move to the county exec? Okay, let's hear from, Blanca, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Mr. Chair. Just a simple request. Would it still be possible to get a copy of that DOJ letter regarding accessory?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll circulate it, and along with, I think there's going to be a lawyer response because it was a lawyer letter. Okay, so we'll get that around. There's, again, I just want to take away any mystery about it. It was something that we were attending to. Okay, County Executive Steve Ballone has been kind enough to join us for a moment to talk about a couple things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I blew it again, as I frequently do with choreography. I was going to hand it over to Mr. Chu, who is Mr. Ballone's, County Executive Ballone's appointee. Sorry about that.
Don't worry, Steve. I'll make it worth it. I'll say something nice. I know you're taxed for time. County Executive Ballone was my first, only, and in turn my favorite elected official I ever worked for. I learned most of what I know about the importance of regional transportation from Steve, working with him. He is someone who very much understands that our public transit system is critical not only to our economic prosperity, but our environmental sustainability and social equity for our region. In between fighting natural disasters and public corruption, I witnessed the county executive in both his time as Babylon supervisor and county executive always make time to prioritize regional transit planning and development. With Connect Long Island as a backdrop, which uses the assets of the Long Island Railroad as the basic structure for leveraging bus rapid transit and transit-oriented development, and even last mile solutions. Steve has been a pioneer for that in that space for now going, I would say, over 2 decades. Whether it was the Wyandanch Rising, transformative development, downtown development, the Ronkonkoma Hub, or even items that sometimes go less noticed, like getting ahead of bike share and making a regional countywide bike share program that's now serving as a great supportive piece of the Riverhead last mile pilot that the MTA is supporting. I believe that there is no elected official in New York State that's more passionate about the benefits and the importance of public transportation, which what I was so both honored. I was very honored for him to recommend me for this appointment. I'm very glad to introduce my county executive, Steve Bellone.
Sam, that was definitely worth it. Thank you for interrupting the chairman there. Very much appreciated, and I appreciate the incredible job that you are doing representing Suffolk County and our region on this board. And there's few people who understand all of the issues that are related here in terms of development, energy, transportation, and how they all intersect for and about Long Island's future. I also want to acknowledge a good friend and another representative for Long Island, Commissioner Mack as well, one of our great civic philanthropical leaders in the region. I want to thank him for his work, and certainly Gerard Bringman from the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council as well. And I also want to acknowledge and thank the public service of Michael Garner and Craig Cipriano. Thank you for all that you have done. And I appreciate Chairman Lieber, the opportunity to say a few words here, and to all the members of the board, the opportunity to say a few words, because this really is a historic moment for Long Island. With the opening of Grand Central Madison really being the culmination of this series of historic investments in the Long Island Railroad system. I used to talk about, and Sam is familiar with this, when we would talk about the Long Island Railroad, that we hadn't seen significant, the Long Island Railroad coming out to Long Island into Suffolk County in the mid-19th century, but we hadn't seen much significant improvement upon that asset over the course of that century and more. We certainly can no longer say that. These investments in the Long Island Railroad system have been historic, from double track, third track, which came online late last year, and of course, Grand Central Madison now. These are game changers. Each of them independently are game changers, but collectively, they are transformative for Long Island. And I want to thank Jano Lieber. I want to thank his team. Certainly want to thank Governor Hochul for her leadership in driving these projects and getting them completed, and these investments. Also, the men and women of labor, of course, who helped make them possible, and Anthony Simon and his leadership of the Long Island Railroad workers for the great job that he does and that they do. But this is a huge moment for us. And as Sam mentioned, the Long Island Railroad is at the core of our economic development plans for this region, because we recognize that being able to move people around this island not just to the city, but also from the city to Long Island, and also intra-island commuting, is critical to our future. And the investments that have been made here are going to allow that to happen. Our plan, our economic development plan, Connect Long Island, is about building around our train stations here and doing transit-oriented development and creating vibrant downtowns centered around transit and connecting to our innovation assets and to other job centers in the region through buses, through bus rapid transit, for instance, on the 110 corridor, which we're working with the MTA, and we appreciate the support there. So our economic future at its core is dependent on the Long Island Railroad and what happens in the future. And there's certainly more things that we want to do. And we think that the investment in Long Island has always proven to be a great investment for New York State overall, because what we deliver to the state is significant, and Long Island's potential is great. The one concern, of course, that I have that I will share is post-pandemic, as we all continue to grapple with a changed world and what shape, what form that's going to take as time evolves, is the impact that has had on the Long Island Railroad and its finances, on the MTA and its finances, and what potential impact that has on service. I think something that we all understand, leaders out here in the business community and labor and the civic community, that cuts to the Long Island Railroad would be devastating, and that is something that we must avoid at all costs. What a tragedy it would be if at the very moment when all of these really extraordinary investments that have been made into the system, at that moment when they come online collectively, that we see declining service, and in a way that could potentially, and this is what my concern is, become a self-fulfilling prophecy. We need to maximize this investment, and that means, and that will certainly mean, that the MTA and the finances are resolved and rectified coming out of the pandemic in a way that creates sustainability and allows the kind of investments in the system that are necessary. So I can tell you that is a priority for us. We are very supportive of doing what we need to do in order to maintain the service levels we have in the Long Island Railroad and to allow for the expansions ultimately that the investments in this infrastructure have created. So again, I want to thank Jano Lieber, our chairman, his team, all the members of the board for the work that you're doing, and to acknowledge that work is not only important, it is critical to Long Island and its future. So and to our state overall. So thank you for the opportunity, and again, congratulations and our thanks as we see these historic assets come online. And I've been to Grand Central Madison already and ridden the train, and it was I will add to the people that you videoed. It was a awesome experience.
We're blessed to have, a governmental partner on Long Island who really has been with us at every step, not just in the projects, but in starting to frame this question of how does the MTA meet the challenge of our fiscal cliff. And we're so grateful to Steve Ballone and to his team, and to you, Sam, for bringing that spirit to your board service as well. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the routine board business. The minutes of the December board meeting and minutes from each committee have been distributed. Are there any corrections or omissions? Mr. Albert.
Thank you, Jano. In the very first paragraph on page 6, it says Chair Lieber stated services at 51% on subways and 77% on commuter rail. That should say ridership, not services at. God help us if we had 51% of subway service.
Amen to that.
With that correction, I'll move the minutes.
Okay. Do I have a second? Lisa, all in favor? The minutes are approved. Committee reports. Committees met jointly this morning, as we explained. As we heard earlier, Bridges and Tunnels, Joint Railroad, and New York City Transit do not have items for board approval. Any further reports from the chairs of these committees? Hold on one second, Mr. Zuckerman.
No.
We have, I think we have, the next is we have finance. Just a second.
Right, okay, thank you. Thank you,
If there
sir.
are no reports from those three committees, on to finance. Mr. Zuckerman.
Thank you, sir. The Finance Committee met a few hours ago in this very room, in this very seats, and there are no procurement actions this month. Does everyone remember that meeting? Okay, but we do have four real estate action items for the board's consideration and approval. They are the following. There are two items for the New York City Transit. The first is a lease with Cooney for the temporary relocation of our buses in support of the Jamaica Bus Depot renovation. The second is a lease with the Greater Jamaica Development Corp. For property to facilitate the relocation of the Jamaica Bus Terminal. The third item is for Long Island Railroad and is a license agreement with VCPT Realty LLC for non-commuter parking on Long Island Railroad property adjacent to the licensee's property on Johnson Avenue in Brooklyn. And the fourth and final item is for Metro North and is a permit with the City of New York for property at the Concrete Plant Park in the Bronx in support of the Penn Station Access Project.
Okay, I'll make the motion, and then I'll make a comment. May I have a second? Mr. Poor, seconds. My comment is that in light of the feedback that we got from the podium this morning, we're going to put together a special briefing for our friends and partners in the advocacy community who had questions about the Jamaica Bus Terminal lease transaction. We do have to do it. We do need a home for that operation. But we want to make sure that folks understand why, and also we're aware of the issues that they're raising. With that,
And General, I have a question. Are we parking the buses overnight at York? Is that what we're doing?
yes.
For CUNY? Okay.
Yeah, Jamie.
That's for, again,
Okay.
it's
That's the depot.
two separate projects.
Yes.
The temporary parking for the Jamaica Bus Depot reconstruction is at York College.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long do we think that's gonna? A year?
A little more than a year. I'll get back to you with a specific timeline, but it's
Great.
just during the reconstruction.
Okay, thank you.
Right. We're going to lose some of the room at the depot while we're putting in all that electric charging infrastructure and so on. That's why we need to move some buses out. Okay. There's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Okay. The
All right,
motion
sir, this concludes the Finance Committee's report.
Thank you. Mr. Solomon, would you do us the honor on capital program report?
Yes, Chair. The Capital Program Committee met this morning. C&D has one procurement item to present for board consideration. The item is for the ratification of a modification to the Coney Island Yard Complex long-term flood mitigation contract for the replacement of the functionality of 11 signal cables utilizing the new programmable logic controller system in the amount of $1,309,700. The modification also extends the substantial completion date by an excusable 104 calendar days. The full details on this item are contained in the board books, and C&D staff are available to answer any questions that you might have. I submit this item for board consideration.
Any questions about that complicated item at the end? Okay. If not, I'll move the action. Can I have a second? Jamie Barbas. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The item carries.
This concludes the Capital Program Committee report.
So may I have, with the acknowledgement of the historic early finish, a motion to adjourn the meeting? All right, second. All in favor? The meeting is adjourned. Afternoon, everybody. This was a great meeting. It was an abbreviated meeting, but a great meeting. You know, I always tell the team we got to focus on the big issues because the MTA has so many big issues. And we talked about the big ones today. We talked about what we've accomplished in terms of good service. New York City Transit on the verge of getting 85% on-time performance, the first time since 2013. The railroads, historic high performance levels, 97% on Metro North, 96% on Long Island Railroad. Again, historic top numbers. And Paratransit, because this is something that we have really pushed that has been, you know, it's not, God knows it's not over, but we are trying to make sure that we have for our disabled customers who are really dependent on the MTA a first-class transportation option. And just want to emphasize something I said in my remarks. We are now at 96% on the accessorized vans, 92% on the for-hire vehicles that are more than half of our paratransit rides on-time performance. And the result is that in 1 year, our paratransit customer satisfaction level went from 44% to 72%. In 1 year, it went up by 38%. So you've got great performance on subways. The buses are up by 2% in terms of speeds, up by 2%. Railroads are historic performance, and paratransit's hitting it out of the park. Real progress under Chris Pangilinan in the last year. Second major issue that we talked about is safety, and the governor and the mayor in their press conference last week highlighted just how much progress has been made in a short time on safety. Breaking news, January is, I think, 30% better in terms of major crimes than January 2022. In the capital program, there's a presentation from Jamie Torres Springer, who runs MTA C&D. They hit $11.4 billion on new contract commitments, and they doubled the rate of completions over 2022. And we all know how many ADA stations are underway, 70 stations underway, and of course the completion of Grand Central Madison and Third Track and so much else. So those are the big things that were accomplished. What's obviously front of mind right now is the MTA's financial condition going into the legislative session, which is the next big thing and the biggest of all that we need to deal with, but an incredibly optimistic, positive meeting talking about the big issues facing the MTA. So I was thrilled.
First question today is N.J. Burkett from WABC TV Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Lieber, why are you pulling the plug on Wi-Fi on New York City's buses?
Well, you know, simple reality, which is our customers told us what they thought of it. They didn't use it. Only a tiny percentage of our customers were using it, and we don't want to waste money, especially in this fiscal condition when only 2% of the customers were using the Wi-Fi. I think it has to do with the fact that most folks have access to cell data.
Did it perhaps have to do with the fact that people didn't know there was Wi-Fi on the buses? Maybe do a public relations campaign so people know?
Listen, we can hypothesize all kinds of things. The bottom line is we had the service out there for several years. Folks were not using it. They were electing to use their phones differently, and we respect that, and we move on to the next thing. We don't waste the public's money on services that our customers don't use.
All right, Michelle Caskey is here from Bloomberg, right in the front row. Michelle.
Optimistic that about the budget release this coming Wednesday. What can you say more about? I mean, are you optimistic that the state and the city or federal government will be helping the MTA out this year, or does that optimism extend to future years as well and the bigger deficits that you're projecting in future years?
What I'm optimistic about is Governor Hochul, because she has taken real leadership about dealing with MTA issues going back to her appointment over a year, her accession over a year ago. She's been, with us on, all the big projects, but also on the big challenges when we had emergency situations. And now she said what I needed to hear in her State of the State. And in other comments recently, she said the MTA is the lifeblood of the region, and we have to make sure it has the resources to provide service. And she expressed concern about any reduction in service. So that does make me optimistic. It also makes me optimistic that a lot of folks in the legislature have spoken out strongly in favor of addressing the MTA's fiscal challenges, which, as we all know, are brought on by COVID. And it put us in a situation where our fare box is more like the rest of the country's rather than the way it used to be, which was we were covering a lot more than other systems.
Are you anticipating, though, that there's going to be maybe some strings attached to any additional financing that the state may extend to the MTA, whether it's additional transparency or asking the MTA to actually produce even more savings than you guys are already anticipating over the next few years?
I don't know. I think we have to let the process play out. I just emphasize we started on our own. The efficiencies that we have put as a cornerstone of our ideas about how to right the MTA's ship financially. Those efficiencies we began attacking and studying at the beginning of 2022. That's not a last-minute move. So we have taken the lead. We're attaching strings to ourselves to make sure that we get to sizing the deficit the way we've described. Remember, it was the MTA that took that is proposing and now is taking the actions in its budget to bring the deficit down from roughly $2.6 billion to $1.2 billion at least in 2024. That was our restructuring of our debt and other actions to kind of resize our exposure, along with $400 million in efficiencies.
All right, Anna Lay, question? The New York Times. Anna.
Hey, Jano. I have a couple of questions. I'm curious, is there a timeline yet on congestion pricing? And to follow up on Michelle's questions, the governor hasn't committed a specific amount, and I'm just curious. I mean, what are you going to do if you're not able to plug this hole, this $600 million hole that's only going to get bigger? I mean, do you have contingencies in place? What will happen if this doesn't come through?
Well, let's number one, it would really make no sense to speculate 2 days before she's going to roll out her plan. So, as I said, I'm really optimistic from everything she said and our work with the administration that she's going to provide a very, very forward-looking plan. But we also said when we adopted the budget that if, depending on what transpires in the executive budget and in the subsequent legislative action, that we would be prepared to take actions on fares and service and other things in the spring. So we've been very upfront about that. Remember, Anna, the only variables that the MTA board controls are the things we don't want to do, which is to close the budget by raising fares dramatically, by cutting service significantly, or by laying off personnel, all things which are bad for customers and bad for New York, and that no one at the MTA wants to do. So, while we haven't articulated exactly what those levels are, those are, unfortunately, the downside scenarios that we have to think about, but are hopeful that the governor and the legislature will not make them unnecessary. And you asked about congestion pricing. The answer is we're still hard at work with the federal government. It's a much longer process than anybody anticipated, but congestion pricing hasn't gone away. And you know what hasn't gone away? Traffic, which is right at the same level it was before before COVID. It's actually worse. New York is now the #1 city in the country in terms of traffic congestion, and the consequences are being talked about, among other places, in the mayor's management report. You got, ambulances can't get to hospitals, fire trucks can't get to fires timely, police cars can't get to crimes in progress, delivery vehicles can't do their work, which supports our economy. Congestion is choking New York, and we're still counting on congestion pricing, and so is Kathy Hochul, as she said in her State of the State.
On the Zoom equipment in front of you, we're going out east to Alfonso Castillo of Newsday, standing by in the Newsday TV studios. Alfonso, good afternoon.
Hi, Jano. Thanks for doing this. A couple of questions, one on East Side Access and one on Penn Station Access. On East Side Access, I know
You
the
mean Grand
shorthand-
Central Madison?
Yes, okay. Well, I'm trying to use
Because East Side Access is the project that went wildly over budget and behind schedule that I inherited in 2018. Grand Central Madison is the one that we finished on time and delivered last week. Yeah.
Well, either of them. I know the shorthand for why it encountered these last delays of whatever it was, a few weeks, was this issue with a fan, as you've talked about it. Jamie Torres Springer, answering a question, I think, from Jerry Brinkman today, talked about how this was fairly complex. There were issues in the rest of the building, that the ventilation, the issues with the ventilation system were pretty comprehensive and in fact have not been fully resolved yet. And I saw what you guys had to do down there, building that wall, I guess, just to be able to pass those tests. Given all that, was it misleading to, late into December, still be talking about a 2022 opening?
No.
Why not?
Because we were still fighting to try to resolve those issues and play with the dials in a way that would be successful in allowing the air system to perform as code required and as designed. So that work was very much underway. Ultimately, it wasn't able to be completed before the new year, and the result was the wall, and completed in my self-selected grace period of 3 weeks. So, Alfonso, I understand that no matter what, there would be something that we need to talk about that's incredibly small and incredibly negative about the project, but here we are opening something which changes the commutes for so many people, saves people time, potentially reinvigorates the Long Island economy by giving reverse commute opportunities, supports the vision of transit-oriented development in Long Island, completes the Gateway project for Long Island. Everyone talks about Gateway for the Hudson River, needing a second route set of tunnels across the Hudson River for Amtrak and New Jersey Transit, a good project. We've got our Gateway for Long Island. We've got a second route in and out of Manhattan in the event of emergency. We did it all, for the price tag that we all know and sometimes gasp at, but when you compare it to the cost of Gateway, which sometimes doesn't even talk about the cost of the train station that's going to need to be done to deliver all that extra service. I'm pretty glad that we have our Gateway for Long Island and that we've put ourselves in a position to juice up both the Long Island economy through reverse community, but equally important through return to work, that we're bringing Long Island closer to New York City so that people are more inclined to maybe go back to offices a little more, maybe come to shop a little more, maybe go to the theater more. Those are all good things, and we delivered those, but I understand that we have to talk about the wall.
And let me ask you also about Penn Station Access today. We found out today that there's some potential delays there, 6 to 9 months. You talked about having legal rights and that this agreement that you drafted up with Amtrak that gives you some level of protection. Can you talk about what that entails? I mean, or do they face fines? Or are they somehow financially liable if there are delays that are directly related to them?
I'm going to ask Jamie. Jamie's coming around. Jamie can talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks. As we noted at the board today, the project has faced challenges due to the lack of availability of support from the partner railroads. It's sort of barring any what we think of as mitigation, right, measures that will help us to improve on the situation. We do face a schedule delay. Fortunately, we're not there yet, and we're cooperating with the railroads to get that back, particularly through what we call long-term outage, which is, Amtrak has expressed willingness, and we're proceeding to take out one track for a longer period of time so we can get more work done. But we do have that agreement, and that agreement does have sharing of risk, which means sharing of cost in the end if cost is incurred. And that's a good thing because it's helping us to move everybody forward.
And just to add a voice, I mean, Amtrak, to Amtrak's credit, they offered up the long-term outage as in effect, a way to overcome a potential delay. So the delay is not final. It's a risk right now because they haven't been able to give these overnight and weekend outages. But now the team, together with Amtrak, is looking for a way to overcome it. And so far, the long-term outage seems like the most promising avenue. Make sense? Okay.
All right, we're going to the mezzanine. Caitlin Ulrich, first time here at the MTA News Conference from News 12 Bronx and Brooklyn. Caitlin.
Hi, how are you?
I watch Spectrum 12 in the mornings.
Spectrum 12?
I do.
We're News 12 Alties.
Well, same thing.
I have a few questions about cops, cameras care. So firstly, I see President Davey over there. He was in front of the Public Safety Committee with City Hall talking about feeding information to NYPD about where to target stations with pulse survey information as well as other determinants for hotspots. So what exact pulse survey information is given to NYPD?
President Davey.
Thank you for wrestling me from my slumber. So two things. I think what I testified to is actually the information we use in the pulse surveys is to do two things. One is to decide where we deploy the unarmed guards that do fare evasion tactics. And so that's one piece. And what we also provide NYPD is a list of the stations where customers are noting that they are seeing instances of crime, emotionally disturbed individuals, homelessness, fare evasion, and then we work on the things, obviously, that are transit-related, cleanliness, broken fare machines, et cetera. So, you have to ask New York, the NYPD how they use that information, but we do provide that information as just another, intel, if you will, for them to think about how to deploy folks.
How often are you sharing that info with them?
Monthly.
Monthly.
And we also, the 311 calls come in, provides a lot of the same quality of life information, and the NYPD gets those calls, and that becomes a trigger for action and focus and deployment for them. I got to say that we're getting great cooperation and collaboration with the NYPD. This new chief, Mr. Kempner, is a very aggressive leader, and we're cooperating well.
Now, for the program itself, did the governor's office approach MTA directly with the idea for this program, or you said during the board meeting that you've been working ongoingly with this program? So how did this cops cameras
and care? No, we were there's no secret that we were seeing things that gave us concern in the fall, especially as there were some high-profile crimes, and there were some indications that crime in general, both statistically and some, as I said, high-profile stuff was going up. And we started working with the city and the state on what actions we all could take. And that was the cops, cameras, and care was the result.
All right, from the first time at the MTA to the first time here with the transit beat, Nolan Hicks of the New York Post has joined us. Nolan.
Thanks, Tim. What's the number you want to see in the governor's budget?
What we laid out was a gap of $600 million, Nolan, in 2023, $1.2 billion in 2024, and there's some drift upward in the years after, mostly because of pension cost adjustments. So we want to see a plan. We are hoping to see a plan to address those deficits. Those are the deficits that were left to be resolved in the budget that the MTA adopted.
Do you think, I guess there's sort of a larger philosophical question. Do you think the MTA's position, do you think the governor views the MTA's position in the New York region as a jobs and economic program that provides transit, or is it a transit agency that provides jobs and opportunity?
hard for me to, I think both of those are legitimate ways of describing the MTA. I think we serve both of those functions, but I don't want to psychoanalyze any of our leaders, least of all one who's about to tell us what our economic future may be.
Well, can you psychoanalyze yourself?
I think those are both, those are both valid ways to describe, MTA's function, right? But the bottom line is, the MTA and the subway is in some fundamental way essential to our collective idea of what New York is. It's not just because the MTA makes New York possible, because with our density, you could not have a functioning city absent a great mass transit system. Our density, twice Chicago and Boston, 10 times Phoenix and Houston. So it's functionally necessary for our economy to function, for people to live here, for us to prosper. But it's also, I think, spiritually and symbolically the essence of New York, because it's a place where New Yorkers share in small spaces and figure out how to get along every day of the week. It sort of represents the best of New York, which is this crazy diversity all working together.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't phrase the question correctly. If I could try to put a point on it again. Do you think the mission of providing jobs to the city as an engine for, providing people an entry to the middle class in some ways constrains your ability to provide the transit the city relies on?
I don't feel constrained. I feel like we get real support from the different branches of government to play the role that we always have, which is to get people to jobs and to education and to healthcare and to opportunity and make it possible for this amazing urban experiment to succeed. That's all I can say.
And moving on to Jose Martinez of the city. Jose.
Good afternoon, Jano. In the way that the MTA is transparent with its dashboards in terms of posting elevator and escalator availability figures, will something similar be done for the many elevators and escalators at Grand Central Madison, given some of the issues that
Truthfully, I don't know whether we historically post data about the escalators and elevator availability in individual stations, but I take your point, and we'll take a look at it.
Given some of the issues that you had on the rollout last week with
listen, I participated in opening several office buildings at the World Trade Center, and let me tell you, it takes a couple weeks to figure out a lot of the systems. When we opened World Trade Center 4, the stack effect, which if you look it up, is not dissimilar from what we were experiencing, at Grand Central. Which is when air was coming in. Remember the old underground network at the World Trade Center? Air was coming in, and it was pushing up into the elevator corridors, and it was interfering with how the doors were opening and closing, and you had to adjust and adapt. That's not something that's weird or different for a brand new facility of this scale. But the bottom line is we're delivering a ton of new service. People are really excited. We haven't even begun the real schedule that's going to be transformational for so many folks.
And back on the screen in front of you is Dan Rivoli from New York 1. Dan, you're up. Good afternoon. Got to unmute.
Hey, Jano.
Yep.
Got questions for two topics I'm interested in. First one is for a story today on the station agents leaving the booth. I spoke to a union official. He says they're going to have, bear with me. He says there's going to be new customer service centers, 15 around the city, and that's going to be happening in a few weeks, and that the workers are undergoing training. Could you just expound on this new program, what you want to see out of these station agents once they're out and about, and what you see are their main responsibilities? And for my second topic, if you'll allow, I'll ask that after your answer.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Rich to come talk about the station agents initiative, but I'll tell you this about customer service centers. One of the first things when I had the power to influence things about outside of MTA C&D that I want to do is change the customer service model that says for a lot of transactions, you got to come stand online on Stone Street around the corner from the MTA headquarters. That I used to, when I was coming in the morning, you get off the R train, you'd see people lined up to turn in old Metro cards, to arrange for reduced fare, to do things maybe they could do them online, but there were a lot of transactions they felt they couldn't. And that seemed like a terrible imposition and not customer friendly. So we started this idea of having customer service centers so that there were places in all the boroughs where people could go and do those same transactions. And that's the genesis of the customer service initiative. We're going to have customer service centers, some working out of booths in major terminals, but some of them in like the retail spaces in major facilities around the system, where you can come in and do all those transactions and you don't have to come to Lower Manhattan to do it. So it's, again, Omni-related stuff, turning in old Metro cards, signing up for different programs. I hope, and we're going to use this to try to proselytize and sign people up for fair fares, because we want everybody who is eligible, who is in the low-income category, to be sure that they know about the fact that you can get half-price travel on the MTA. We never want fare evasion to be a crime of poverty. So we're going to try to push out eligibility and get more people to sign up for fair fares. But let me ask Rich to come and talk specifically about how the station agents out of the booths is going to work.
Thank you, Jano. So, as you reported back in December, we came to a historic deal with the TWU and our partners. We've been undergoing training for our 2,400-ish station agents as of November for, I think, training sessions per week. That is going to carry on for at least a year. We have a public hearing scheduled for February 1st, so in 2 days. Anytime we need to make a major change to the station booths, we're required by law to at least have a public hearing. So we'll go through that, assuming that there are no issues from that public hearing. I've heard nothing but generally positive reviews and anticipation for rolling this out. We'll expect to go back to the board in end of February to read out the results of that public hearing. And again, anticipating no issues, we'll be rolling this out sometime in early March, which is rolling out meaning the station agents will be out of the booths permanently. As you asked and mentioned, again, we mentioned this at our December board meeting, there'll be 15 customer service centers. As the chairman said, we are blessed to have a chairman who uses our service every day, so he saw the need to make sure we were having enhanced customer service, and so his idea we're enacting, which is to have these 15 booths. Some will be rolled out in the coming weeks. Others require build-out, and those will be rolled out in the coming months. But those will be, again, as he said, to have enhanced transactions around Omni, other transactions that folks currently can only come down here to 3 Stone Street to have addressed. So it's, frankly, very inconvenient for most of our customers. Now we'll have these out across the 5 boroughs. So, again, we're excited. I know many of our employees are excited. The TWU is a great cooperative partner in this. So we're excited to roll this out in the coming weeks.
More customer service and closer to the customer. More customer service, closer to the customers, Dan. That's what it's about, both the customer service centers and bringing our station booth stations out of the booth. Yep. Yes, go on to
my
your
second topic. The MTA no longer separately reports weekend service data. I don't know who in your organization did it, but I guess my question is, bring it back, please. I think it's good to know how weekend service is operating compared to weekdays. So can we bring
Davey,
that back?
you want to come up for that one? Because I think...
So apologies, Dan. I'm unaware of that. We will, because actually weekend service has been really great. So it's certainly, we're not hiding anything. In fact, weekend service, now that the weekends in January complete, we'll have the best weekend service since sometime in early 2023 this January. So I think the investments and the push that we've made on our weekend czar and really working with our partners in construction development to ensure that we're doing a lot of the work we're required to do, but not at the expense of our customers, is really paying off. So again, I'm unaware that we're not reporting that out publicly, and we'll make sure you rectify it.
Best service since early, what was that? 2013.
Best weekend service
10 years.
since early 2013. Got that, Snarkaholics? Okay, let's go.
All right, another first-time visitor here to the MTA headquarters, sir, is Sabine Beckert. She's from Pro7 TV in Germany.
Yeah, hi. So the increase in crime last year made international headlines, even in Germany, and A lot of international students or tourists who come here are a little concerned about the safety. What can you tell them? What measurements are in place to make them feel safer?
Okay, number one, New York is still among the very safest big cities in the United States. You just compare our crime statistics, it is still a very safe city. And people need to be aware of that. We actually have made significant progress on crime. New York, we have, even after COVID, the MTA has 3.5 million mass transit passengers every day. It's about the same as the population of the city of Los Angeles. We have on average, we have 6 to 8 serious crimes. The city of Los Angeles would, I'd say, be pretty happy to have 6 to 8 serious crimes every day. New York is safe. The subway is very safe, and it has been getting much, much better in the last couple of months because we pushed a lot more uniformed police officers into the system, and we're letting our passengers know that they're there. So it's the MTA and our mass transit system is safe, and we would love to welcome German students back to New York as soon as possible.
Follow-up question. I read about that you're planning to do cameras inside the cars, which would make people feel more safe. Is this something that's going to be rolled out soon, or?
The Governor Hochul has committed to outfit and to help us pay for putting cameras inside all the subway cars. We already have 10,000 cameras in our network of 472 stations, but now there'll be cameras in all the cars. It's going to be done over the next year or two, and it's consistent with the fact that lots of other mass transit systems have cameras in the system. The commuter railroad, the Long Island Railroad, Metro North, the PATH trains to New Jersey all have cameras inside the cars. Now the New York City subway cars will as well.
All right, we go to Dave Colon from Streets Blog, sporting the bowling team gear today.
Slight contrast with Mr. Hicks, I would say.
Well, we got a real
buddy act.
I don't care about buddy movies right now.
The phrase we're looking for, it's a buddy act.
I had a couple for you. One is that it's going to be, you got to get used to this, Nolan. It's going to be every month for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Last year, the city only was able to install about 7 miles of bus lanes, according to a Riders Alliance bus lane track that they've got going. This year, they're supposed to be installing 30. I'm wondering, is there more that the MTA can do to make sure that that happens this year? What do you want to see the DOT do to ensure that those 30 miles of bus lanes do go down?
We have to start hitting the numbers along the lines of what you're talking about, Dave. The mayor made a commitment, and now and the MTA made a commitment. We did it together after a meeting that was billed as a summit on bus service. So now we and the DOT, our organizations, have to do everything possible to make good on that commitment. Now we'll need a little bit more cooperation, in some case from some neighborhoods. There are sometimes folks who resist having bus lanes, but the evidence is clear that bus lanes allow us to run much faster buses, and there are many more people who depend on buses, especially in low-income neighborhoods, than own and move around in private automobiles. And so we really need to do whatever is necessary to make good on the mayor's commitment and the MTA commitment to hit those goals.
And then I wanted to go back to what Anna was talking about before. I know you said that congestion pricing is here to stay, but we are at the end of the month that we were supposed to see, according to the high-level schedule, the record of decision document, I guess the final FONSI, or we don't get the FONSI, whatever. This is the schedule that you guys put out. Last time we had a delay like this, you suggested there was some blame to go around. The technical questions from the feds were a giant pain. Is there blame to go around this time? I mean, what is going on with the delay?
I'm not ready to blame anybody. I don't disagree with you. I'm not going to gainsay that there is delay. This is a complicated federal process. We have to answer a lot of really complicated technical stuff. Remember, you're modeling 8 or 9 different scenarios, and doing a lot of complex environmental air quality analysis as well. We have to answer all their questions and respond to their their procedural requirements. So I don't want to disagree with you that there is delay, but we're pushing forward, and I'm optimistic that our partners in the federal government are going to move ahead in good time.
And I know the president's coming to town tomorrow. He's going to go point at the Gateway Tunnel and say things about the federal infrastructure bill, I guess. But presumably that means that your Jersey Jokers, your Phil Murphys, your Josh Gottheimers, people who have been very vocal about being against congestion pricing could be there and are going to get in the president's ear about it. I mean, are you worried that nobody's going to be there to say,
Listen,
it's a good thing, don't listen to these guys?
I'm not worried about that. This is an event. Look, the President of the United States is passionate about mass transit. That is amazing. Then we have the President of the United States is passionate. Chuck Schumer is a passionate leader on mass transit. We have Hakeem Jeffries as the minority leader in the House. We have a governor who's made infrastructure investment a priority, and a mayor who cares about infrastructure and is especially leading the way on making sure it's safe. So we have a rare combination of elected level commitments at the different branches of government, and now we have a ton of money. Why shouldn't they come together to celebrate in New York, which is the mass transit capital of certainly of North America?
And closing out the proceedings today, Ben Brockfeld from AM New York. Ben.
Hi, Jano. I wanted to ask about Grand Central Madison. It is a big, beautiful terminal. I'll admit that, but something that. Something that I couldn't help but notice is that there's nowhere to sit there. Why is there no seating?
Where'd you go? Where'd you look?
The whole, that whole concourse. There was.
Yeah.
I didn't really see much.
There's a waiting area. There's a waiting area next to the ticket counters.
You mean the one near all the screens? I didn't see any seating there.
Well, we just put it in today because we were afraid you would ask this question. But yeah, it's there. No, it's there. Go have a look. It's by the ticket area. But more broadly, there's also, it's not a secret that we're, in addition to the stuff that's built in, we're also, the retail installation couldn't happen because we were in the middle of COVID, and retailers really didn't know what their business was going to be or where COVID would leave us. So they wanted to see what the foot traffic was like before they made bids. So that got delayed. But there will also be seating in open areas around the retail and the food, and in addition to the waiting area I described.
All right, Ben, we've got a photograph of that for you. We'll show you right now. Thanks, Jano. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, Rich. Thanks, everybody, and good afternoon from Lower Manhattan.
There we go.